Hi, my name's Rob Pope, Senior Consultant and Partner with Ecolite Energy Solutions, and it's my pleasure to present on behalf of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen this fifth of a six-part series on the subject of best practices in building planning design, compliance, best practices in building envelope, and high-performance HVAC systems. In the first four sessions, we covered strategies for building energy efficient homes. We discussed the energy and zero carbon step codes and their compliance requirements. We covered working with energy advisors, and we covered building envelopes. Today, we are going to explore HVAC systems and processes. Our final chapter in this series will include working with your builder. A heat pump, furnace, boiler, an HRV or ERV, and all associated ducting, plumbing, and controls, when combined, are the systems that keep you warm when it's cold outside, cool when it's hot outside, and healthy throughout the year. We touched on this in our fourth chapter on building envelopes. How well the building envelope functions will have a direct impact on the size, type, complexity, and cost of the mechanical system. That's why, first of all, it's important to determine the envelope before even considering the mechanical system. It's also better to focus first on optimizing the building envelope. Remember, the building envelope doesn't need to be serviced once or twice a year, doesn't need filter changes and technical adjustments on a regular basis, and will outlast the life cycle of any mechanical equipment. The better the envelope, the simpler the mechanical system. When the strategies for an effective building envelope are completed, then we can focus more on the strategies for the HVAC system that will comply with regulations, be optimized for efficiency and cost, that will fit into the structural and aesthetic design, and ultimately meet the client expectations. Proper sizing, installation, and commissioning are the three critical ingredients that determine the performance of any HVAC system. And although approaches to HVAC are evolving, there are still practices that are a holdover from previous decades that are slow to change. There are still too many projects that are not guided by properly executed load calculations. HVAC designs are too often shoehorned into a project after the structure is completed, when it's too late to fully optimize the system. And verification, or commissioning, as it is often referred to, is rarely done adequately, if at all. Fortunately, it's getting better. We're now seeing more homes perform a mid-construction blower-door test. Slowly, more jurisdictions are requiring more standardized permitting processes, so it's less hodgepodge or different regulations from town to town or region to region. And as the permitting process is becoming more standardized, jurisdictions having authority are beginning to incorporate inspections of HVAC to ensure minimum standards are met. How do we begin to set the home's HVAC system on the right course in the first place? Well, there is a process. It has 7 critical stages. Stage 1, discovery, where we discover key imperatives for the project, client expectations, budget, compliance requirements, and more. Stage 2, load calculations, which is the foundation that guides everything that comes next. Stage 3, equipment selection, which includes not just the brand and model of equipment, but also the technology, energy source, distribution system, and how it's controlled. Stage 4, the HVAC design. One option is you get whatever happens to be in the van. The other option is a coordinated, detailed design that articulates the agreed upon strategy and provides a set of specifications for the installer to follow. Stage 5, installation. There needs to be a way to verify the installation meets the design intent and does so with an acceptable quality of workmanship. Stage 6, performance verification, which is ensuring the installed system actually does what it's supposed to do, meets all the manufacturer's testing requirements, and documents it all. And finally, stage 7, the handover to the homeowner. We have to ensure that the homeowner is familiar with all major components of the system, how to control it, how to maintain it, and who to call if there is ever an issue. For a successful outcome, it's important to start with what often is referred to as an integrated design process, IDP. This is just a fancy way of saying that the key decision makers get together at the earliest stage of the home's design and create a strategy in a coordinated fashion, as opposed to the conventional process for Part 9 buildings, which is you call the HVAC contractor after the roof is on and then hope for the best. Here's a closer look at that graphic. As you can see, the conventional approach engages each expert one at a time. This saves costs up front maybe, but the costs, including scheduled delays, load up during construction phase, whereas the IDP approach loads all the consulting up front before construction, which creates savings and reduces surprises after construction begins. IDP is the beginning of the first stage, discovery, and continues throughout the project until occupancy. But for the discovery, here are the things that we want to accomplish at this stage. Client expectations. What is comfort to them? And lifestyle plays a role in that. Are there specific health issues that may be served with different levels of indoor air quality management? What do they want for zoning, controls, aesthetics, sound, and what preconceived ideas do they have that does or does not align with reality? Financial. What's the budget? Is there room for movement if more value propositions are presented? Compliance requirements, whether it's the minimum for permits or the client wants to achieve a higher energy performance level. And we can move on to stage 2, load calculations. Without proper load calculations, everything is just a guess, in which case you're completely dependent on luck and coincidence to get a good outcome. When load calculations are performed, they can't be a mishmash of everyone's different method of doing load calculations. There is one methodology that is acceptable in code and in practice, and that is CSA F280-12. There are at least a half dozen software providers that meet this standard. One of the most common problems we see when something is not working well in a relatively new system is the load calculation was not done, which means the equipment is not well matched to the home's actual heat loss and heat gain. It will cause reduced efficiency, typically higher operating maintenance costs, shorter life cycle of the equipment, uneven temperatures, poor comfort and noise. So obviously there's no upside to skipping properly done load calculations. Stage 3 is equipment selection. There's a lot more to selecting equipment than most people realize. First of all, there's a large market full of a wide range of products. There's air-to-air, forced-air central and or remote ducted and ductless cassettes. There's air-to-water, radiant, forced air, and domestic preheat. There's domestic hot water for heat pumps, split and packaged, ground source heat pumps, geothermal, water-to-water, water-to-air, and cold climate heat pumps, air-to-air or air-to-water. Equipment is only part of a system. For example, an air handler for forced air versus a boiler for radiant, or a combination of both. That's on the delivery side of the system. On the energy source side of the system, there are two general categories: all electric and dual fuel, which is often referred to as hybrid system. The all-electric will include the outdoor compressor, the indoor coil, and, if necessary, auxiliary heat provided by electric strip. If the heat pump can't keep up during the coldest winter peaks, the electric strip will come on and top up the heat pump. The dual fuel is typically a heat pump coupled with a gas boiler or gas furnace. The indoor coil is separately attached to the furnace. In this case, when the heat pump can't keep up during those winter peaks, the gas furnace will take over completely. The first step in equipment selection comes with determining the energy performance requirements of the project. It's also important to understand the availability and suitability of the energy sources, operating costs and benefits, homeowner interests and motivations, and compliance requirements. Other considerations when selecting equipment would be capacity and suitability for home family size. For example, effective capacity for the heat pump, equipment efficiency, installation and maintenance requirements, and other things like space requirements, noise level, electric service requirements, etc. Ventilation should be either an HRV, which is a heat recovery ventilator, or an ERV, which is an energy recovery ventilator. Both are systems that constantly remove stale air from the house and replace it with an equal and balanced amount of fresh air. As the stale outgoing air flows through the HRV or ERV, it transfers a large portion of its heat to the fresh incoming air. And it should be at a third-party rated efficiency of 60% or better. The difference between an HRV and ERV is that the HRV transfers heat, while the ERV transfers both heat and moisture, which makes it better for very dry climates. Equipment for heating domestic hot water can be as simple as an electric hot water tank, but there are other options, and they include a gas or electric tankless on demand, a condensing gas hot water tank, and a heat pump hot water tank. Any of these products may be appropriate. It depends on the kinds of things that you would discover during the discovery and IDP process. So you've completed the equipment selection process and now you're at stage 4, HVAC design. As previously stated, one way to design the HVAC system is hope for the best after the contractor pulls up to the finished structure. The other way is to let the contractor simply follow the design that has already gone through IDP, discovery, load calculations, and equipment selection. A design that is already integrated into the structure has already been vetted for aesthetics and constructability, a design whose iterations are completed. However, in addition, a design needs to contain a few ingredients to be considered a proper design, such as balance point calculations for heat pumps and auxiliary or supplementary heat systems, equipment summary, make and models with third-party, rated efficiencies and electrical specifications, a schematic arrangement of the forced air or radiant systems. For example, fittings, flows, total external static pressure, all duct and pipe sizing and airflow targets. Standards of practice, such as material to be used, insulation requirements, duct sealing expectations, and quality of workmanship. Here's what those basic components of an HVAC design would look like. Design should be detailed and comprehensive enough so that it's crystal clear what goes in and how it all fits together. So the design is done, everybody's happy, and we get to the point where it's starting to be installed. This is stage 5, the quality assurance stage. It's not enough to have successfully completed the discovery, performed the load calculations, and designed the optimum HVAC system, all coordinated with an effective IDP process. None of it will mean much if the installation isn't executed to meet the design intent or has been done with poor workmanship. The first step to continuing to a positive outcome is choosing the most appropriate installation contractor. You have completed a design, you also have a set of bid specifications for the contractor to use for accurate costing and ultimately bidding on the project. Their quote should be as per design, without changes, omissions, without additions. Of course, the right contractor should be able to demonstrate their experience and trade qualifications. Naturally, reputation will also have a value. And remember that the HVAC design should be shared with any of the trades that may have impact on that design. Field reviews. Even the best of contractors may have a bad day, miss something, or misunderstand something. For these reasons, there must be a process of checking the installation. Ideally, if schedules and budget permit, the first meeting on site with the HVAC contractor, general contractor, and any others should occur when the structure is completed before commencement of installation. This would be the opportunity to verify the design against the actual structure, make design adjustments if required, and clarify any details that may not be clear in the design itself. A field review before cover with drywall is critical. Basically, this is an inspection. Was the design followed or not? Is the workmanship acceptable or not? Are there any deficiencies that need to be corrected before cover? And finally, before occupancy, another inspection to check the system function against design targets and ensure that a full commissioning was completed. Stage 6, performance verification. Commissioning, really. And commissioning is part of the final field review and a part of performance verification, the shakedown before handover to client. Is everything working? Have all the manufacturer's startup procedures been followed and documented? Have all airflows, temperatures, pressures been measured and balanced? It's at this point we want to find the issues, if any, and resolve them. This is much better than finding out from the homeowner on a cold Sunday night that something isn't working. It's the installation contractor's responsibility to do the commissioning and the designer's responsibility, the builder's responsibility to ensure that it was done and done properly. So here we are at the final stage, stage 7, homeowner education. Somebody has invested a lot of money, time, and expectations into this new HVAC system. So it's only fair, but also important to do a thorough walkthrough with the homeowner to allow them to become familiar and comfortable with the system, how to operate it, and how to take care of it. The handover should include a binder with full documentation, including owner's user manuals, installation manuals, warranty paperwork, equipment submittals, load calculations, design drawings, as-builts, warranty documents, maintenance requirements, and schedules, all commissioning forms filled out and completed. And that brings us to the end of this 5th chapter on heating, cooling, and ventilation. And here are some resources that are very helpful that provide more information in detail. Again, this was the 5th chapter of a 6-part series on best practices in building planning design, compliance, best practices in building envelope, and high-performance HVAC systems. And again, to remind you, other chapters in this series include introduction and strategies for building an energy-efficient home, energy step code, zero carbon step code, and regulatory compliance, working with energy advisors, building envelope, heating, cooling, and ventilation, which we covered today, and finally, working with your builder. Thank you very much for your time.